It's time to take decision day around the world. Have you ever wondered what education, and more specifically senior year, is like in Australia? Recruitment specialist and certified organizational coach Lauren Karan, who I met at an in-person event in LA hosted by James Whitaker, is going to share with us what her decision day was like and how life after high school is set up on the other side of the world. I'm Leah Leverage, a class of 2022 high school graduate exploring every path to success after senior year. Let's expand your mind to what's out there and narrow down your options so you can make a graduation decision with confidence. You're listening to Decision Day.
The Decision Day podcast is brought to you by the Rise and Record event in Nashville, Tennessee. Rise up and share your story through video. Visit riseandrecord.com for more.
So hello, Lauren. Thank you for joining us from the next day.
Hey, Leah. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
So let's just set the picture for everyone. What kind of student were you like in secondary school or high school?
I was studious. So I was very much a work hard, play hard student. So I loved to go to parties and have a good time, but I was also school captain, assistant house captain, and then prefect. So I was very much involved in like leadership and did a lot around singing. So I was really into, the music side, but also academically. I'd say it's academically like, A minus, B plus. Like I wouldn't say it was straight A's everything. I definitely struggled in some subjects. Like I had to get tutoring sometimes in maths and things like that didn't come as naturally to me. But I was pretty studious and well-behaved and mature, but I did like to party as well. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to tell you that I was like an angel. I had a good time on the weekend, but it's kind of like transferred into my life. I love to have fun. When I'm having fun, I'm in it. But when I'm there to work or when I'm there as a student, I'm really in that. I feel like when you're there to learn, maximizing that time is so important so that when you're not there, you've done the hard work at that time and you can really enjoy, the parties or the hobbies that you do on the weekends.
Okay. So when you were in your early ages of school, do you think that your school set you up to have that mindset, or does it just come naturally to you to be passionate and good at school and education and stuff like that?
It's a really good question. I look back on it because I definitely went to a what we call over here a public primary school till about year 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then we discovered I was quite good at singing, and there was nothing in that public school around the singing side of things. So we moved me to a private school that had musicals and a lot more like could use that strength that I had. Yeah. And so I feel like if I look at anything and look back on it, I think where the schooling helped is my parents were wise enough to realize I had a strength in a particular area, and that was entertaining and music.
Nice.
And that putting me in a place where I would be able to use that strength or be able to get that outlet would help me academically. I also found at the public school, I was going really well, but almost like they weren't progressing me any further because they didn't have the capacity. And so they were saying, she's reading really advanced, but like there's nothing we can do. And they all wanted to do dancing and things like that. So my parents, where I think they were clever, is they're like, we think she's quite good at singing, and she really wants to do that. Let's find a school that does that. Now, very much applying those own principles to choosing a school for my own kids is getting a feel for where their interests might be and going to a school that values that and nurtures that. Because my mindset now I look like, and what I've learned is if we allow our children to use their strengths in high school and figure out what they're passionate about and they like, and we find somewhere they can keep doing that, they then become more engaged with the school. And I feel like that then helped me become more engaged academically because I had that outlet.
Right. I really like that. So for the private school, you have to pay for it, right? In Australia?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
You can do scholarships. So I did get a scholarship. I got a musical and an academic. So you sit a test. So that did help my parents with the fee side of it. So over here, if you do well enough academically or well enough musically, they'll pay your fees. So you can get a quarter of your fees or up to half of your fees paid.
And that's for primary school, not even university.
This is secondary school. So primary school. Yes. So my parents moved me in primary and then they had to pay. And then they probably went, let's give this a crack, see if we can save some money. And then they made me sit a test for the academic one. And then you had to do a performance for the music scholarships.
And then does it come down to, in that situation, like if the school is genuinely better, the amount of money is like, well, it's worth it?
I think so. And I don't even know if it's a private versus public thing. I think it's more around what the school values. So this was, to give you an idea, paint a picture, this was like a small town. It was an Anglican school on acreage. So it was like a, sort of out of the way, and a big property, heaps of space. Think trees, think kangaroos, literally kangaroos jumping
Beautiful.
past. Yeah, think like Aussie kind of school. It was Harvey Bay. Harvey Bay's here is like a small sleepy beach town, and that was the school. So I felt like the class sizes were definitely smaller. The school was a small school. You knew everybody in your grade, and then most people you'd know in the whole of secondary school. So I don't think that's necessarily, important for every kid, but I think every parent kind of knows their kid and what they like. By the time you get to secondary, you see your kid either being really super creative or interested in a sport, that. And more, I think, if you know that school has an area, an opportunity for them to shine and do what they love, then give them that opportunity to set them up for success instead of trying to, if you put me in a school that was very sporty and I couldn't do my music. I mean, I wonder how much more, I wonder if I would have been engaged as much academically. I don't know.
This is very interesting because everything you're describing sounds like what we do for college. So you guys are like a little bit ahead. So last thing about your secondary school experience, were your parents, how were they like in their school? How much school did they achieve, and did that have an influence on you?
Yeah, interesting. So my parents, so both my parents were disabled when I was growing up. So my dad was retired from the police force with PTSD, so with stress. And so he suffered and he had a really bad back. So both had morphine pumps in their stomach and they didn't work. My mum was a stay-at-home mum. Neither of them went to university. My grandfather, my sister didn't go to university, and only one of my cousins did. So university wasn't really a thing. My grandfather actually was really influential. He just kept saying to me, I really, he had polio when he was growing up, and they were so poor they would have to go and hunt rabbits and things like that to be able to live. And my dad's mum left when he was 16. So they grew up really, really poor. And my grandfather loved learning and loved education. And so much so he had all these little dictionaries and he'd teach himself other languages. And he kind of took me under his wing and he would read me books and he would say, I would love you to go to university. He's like, because you love learning like me. And I think he kind of instilled that love of learning in me early on. And so I realized as well, and I learned from that, it doesn't have to just be a parental figure. It could be a grandparent and I know even my husband's spoken about the fact that his grandfather instilled a lot of learning and that thirst for knowledge. And that's what, I guess, kind of led me wanting to go to university, I think, even though my family hadn't.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's why I asked you before we started recording if you had a sibling that was older, because I feel like a lot of times younger siblings will kind of be like, oh, however, older sibling did that. Maybe I could do that. It's like that really close influence that they might have. So are you happy that you were influenced in that way to continue your learning?
I loved it. And I did. And I learned things from university that, I mean, I did psychology. I use psychology a lot. But I also find that I learned how to learn as well at a younger age. So when I was going to uni, it wasn't too hard for me because, I mean, when I was in year 12, I was it was a semi-professional musical. I was Maria in The Sound of Music, which was every night rehearsals for 4 hours while I was doing senior year, my final year. So I learned pretty quick to juggle. And that was the biggest thing. I juggled that. And then on weeks I did gigs. So weekends, my weekend job was singing at pubs and things. And my mum would come along. So I was always juggling a lot at a very young age. So when it came to university and juggling the studies and juggling having to work 2 jobs to put myself through university, because HEX, which we call over here, which is where you can pay back. You don't have to pay your degree. You can pay it back later on.
A loan?
And you can get a student loan.
Okay.
It's not very common over here to do that though. I mean, unless you get a government student loan, from what I know, a lot of uni students, we just live on minute noodles and be really, really poor.
So a loan and a HEX are different.
Yes. HEX is your higher education scheme over here, which basically is, you go to university, say, the degree might be $30,000 or $40,000. Once you get to a certain income threshold, so say you earn, I don't know what it is, it's maybe 50,000 or 60,000, only then do you start paying it back out of your salary before tax. And I think that influences more people to study, because you don't have that cost upfront glaring in your mind, because you're going to pay it off. And I did as well. A lot of people do this in Australia too. I did marketing and journalism in my first year, because I was like, I want to be a journalist. Now I get to do a podcast. So dream come true. But I did that year, and then I found it really, I did a psych elective. And if anything, I found marketing journalism was interesting, but I loved psychology. And that exploration, you do a lot more over here, because you don't see the cost up front. You don't pay it back till later. You might go in and do your first year and try something and be more amenable to changing it and going, okay, I did a psych elective, I want to do psychology. That's how it happened for me.
Okay. So really quick, is the debt over there as almost like crippling as it feels over here, where a lot of people end up, like I just talked to somebody who is still $100,000 in student loans, like still paying it off. Is it that extreme with the
No,
like buy now,
no.
pay later? No.
No, most people's degrees would be, I don't know what it is now. I think it's 20 or 30 grand for psychology, maybe 40. And
Okay.
that's it. And you pay that off once you hit a certain income threshold, and you don't even see the money. It kind of gets taken out of your pre-tax salary.
Okay.
So I think it's not as crippling over here, which probably leads to more people maybe choosing to try university.
Yeah.
Because of that scenario, and it opens it up to people, because my husband on the other side of it, he did qualify for, if you don't earn as much, if your family doesn't earn as much money, you can get special loans at lower interest rates and things like that from the government that you can pay back to go through universities. It seems like over here there must be a little bit more support if you don't have the income to pay for the degree.
That sounds very nice. So, do you guys have a decision day over there? Like when you heard my podcast name, were you like, "What's that?" Or is it like,
Yes.
"Yeah, we have
I
one."
was
Okay.
like, what's that? What is decision day? I
Really?
don't understand it. Yeah, we don't have that.
Oh my gosh. So it's when the seniors, basically, it's like a day that the seniors celebrate in high school where everyone wears a shirt of whatever college they're going to. And it's like a day where you celebrate what college you're going to. But what I'm trying to fight to change is, let's celebrate what anyone's deciding to do, whether you're deciding to work, whether you're deciding to go into the military, whether you're deciding to become a plumber or an electrician, go into the trades, like anything, not just college. But decision day is basically the technical day when everyone celebrates the decision that you plan to make after high school. So maybe I should be changing my podcast name if it's not even global.
Well, I actually thought when you wrote decision day, I didn't think decision day. I thought, that moment when you've got to decide what am I going to do for the rest of my life. That's how I thought of it. So
you don't have that.
No, over here you have preferences. So you put preferences of what you want to study. So you've got to get a good enough OP or score, whatever they
Test
call
score.
it now. Test score
Okay.
overall to get into the unis. And they do that by everyone sits a big test and they benchmark you where you sit against everybody else.
Interesting. So we have that as well, but for you describing it like you decide your preferences, does it feel like, all right, college or university is the next step? Like everyone just goes right into it, or no?
This is such a good question, because it always was. I think it's often pushed a little bit more in secondary school. I don't find over here it's not as elitist as in the US. Like, so I don't find whatever university you go to, you don't buy the jumper and have the sorority and things like that. You just go to uni and you live somewhere close by in some sort of apartment that you can afford. And then you go that way. You don't have this sorority and this group. And I when I watch American TV, I was like, that's so funny. It's so different over here in that respect. We don't really have, there's not that, I don't feel there's not that real. There's the unis that kind of tell you that they're the elite uni and things like that. But honestly, when you graduate, no one cares. As long as you've had a good degree, if you need it underpinning what you do, no one really cares. And I think as well, tradies over here, it's seen as a good thing if you're a tradie and then and then most of them go to run their own business. It's not seen as a bad thing either.
Trade school.
Yeah. So you can go
Ah,
as well. You can in 11 and 12 over here go to TAFE, which is where you can learn a trade. So you can learn it in your final years of secondary and
I
decide that
like how
much sooner.
normalized it is. That's where the money is. But when I was researching now, I did hear about that because I was looking up a little bit, like watching videos as if my YouTube and my Google is going to be like, you want to move to Australia? Because it's going to seem like I've been researching as if I want to study there, which I mean, I'm not saying no to that, but
Come on, we'll be ready for you.
I saw someone say that college in America is more like a lifestyle, where college in Australia is more like a job. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I would definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Because
it
I mean,
sets
when
you up.
it sets you up. The only difference, yeah. I mean, I think you still party and have a good time, but you're going to university to learn and get that degree, and then because you're supporting yourself, your life is you've got to do other things as well. I mean, I worked hosting karaoke. I worked at serving popcorn and in just so many different jobs that I had through uni to make money, and that was kind of my life. You were kind of in that job mentality even though you were studying, rather than it being a completely different world.
I kind of like that. It's like, okay, you're entering the real world. Let's get you ready versus let's have a good time all the time. Um,
Yes.
if that makes sense. So have you noticed now, I don't know if you can tell what the majority is in 2024 since your kids are still young, but even when you went, what are the amount, like if you took your class, how many didn't go to college? Is it like you can count on one hand?
Oh, good question. So if I look, I'm just going to look purely at because it's friends of mine that I'm still friends with from we met when we were
Yeah.
11. We all went to uni,
Okay.
studied different things. One's a teacher, one's a social worker. No, I obviously run a recruitment company.
Is it becoming
Because,
less common in Australia?
well, they are saying, so if I look, I recruit a lot in the engineering and technical side, and we are struggling to get people to study in those fields and things
Okay.
like that. So I think there's a struggle to get people into highly technical fields and things like that because of a lack of people going to university.
Wow.
I definitely think, I think where university is at the moment is, and with the changing landscape of AI and technology moving at such a rapid pace, I think young people want to know that when they're going to university, that what they learn is going to still be current,
Yes.
by the time they finish. This is the really interesting thing. So if we know that the state of information and that we're learning, and that AI is changing the game. I mean, AI has been around forever, but it's only now that we're really seeing it come into the software we use. Everything we do now has an element of AI that we can add on and things like
Yep.
that. So I think that students and universities, their biggest challenge is going, what are the skills that university can offer that are what we call our fundamental or baseline skills that can be built on? Because if we're just teaching theory and information, that's going to be invalid. I mean, look, I study psychology, and a lot of what I learned, some of it, Freud's still around. Hey, Freud. But a lot of it is sort of still not as current now. Like, strengths-based psychology, positive psychology, some of these new growth, like the growth mindset and working on, how you can build on a strength and using your strengths at work. All this stuff is new. Everything evolves in the area of study. So unless you are keeping current when you leave, what does that degree really mean? You have to be going, if you're going to university, you want to be going to university to learn how to think critically, and
Yeah.
how to continually keep up to date with your information, because the learning doesn't stop when you leave. And also, a big lesson for me that I wish someone had told me was, don't focus so much on what your job is going to be. Focus on what your superpower is, and when your
Oh, yeah.
strength, and then you'll work it out from there. But if you're always focusing on what the end job is, and you're not learning what your strengths and superpowers are, you might end up becoming a lawyer because you think that's a great job, but you haven't sat down and figured out, what does a lawyer's day look like? And you might get there, and I deal with people this all the time in career coaching. You might get there and go, oh, I actually don't like the day-to-day reality of being a lawyer. I thought it was like, Law and Order, that I'd get to be
Elle
up
Woods, Legally Blonde.
yeah. I thought I was going to be, saving the world and doing great speeches. So I think the other thing that university teaches you is you do try stuff. But I do believe if people are thinking at a younger age around what they love, and their parents encourage them more to figure out what lights them up or what their superpower or super strength is, and if they can then apply that in whatever if they choose to study, if they choose to start a business, whatever they choose, doesn't matter whether you study or whether you do a trade. What actually matters if you know you can use something that you are firstly enjoy and is a strength of yours as well at work, because that's going to lead to higher engagement. That's going to lead to increased well-being. And we all know that when we're not happy at work, what happens? We put on weight, mental stress, burnout. So for me, let's get our kids thinking about this sooner. So to avoid some of the mental health and burnout and impacts we see now, where people have gone down a path that they probably shouldn't have.
Beautifully said. I mean, I got to come back to this if I have kids, like remind myself. So if you could move your exact situation from grade 12 to right now, you were graduating in 2024, would you still have decided to go to university?
Oh, that's good. Yes, I did love psychology.
Okay.
I did. Probably I would still have decided to go to university, because I did get a lot out of, I would have not listened to people that told me not to study psychology though, because I wasn't good in, that was what I would change. So I did a year of marketing and journalism because I was good at English, and everybody said to me, I was not good at science. I struggle with science, struggle with maths. And even though I was interested in psychology and I knew that I'd be good at it, the actual subjects that led to it, I found challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I feel like the teachers were doing then, or the career guidance counselors you had, is they're trying to pick not necessarily what's just a strength and what you enjoy, but what you're academically good at. And going, oh, you're academically good at English, therefore you should be a teacher, you should be a journalist, you should do, and maybe they were on something, because now I do write a lot and I do run a podcast. But I did want to learn psychology, and I did have that interest, and it did light me up learning about how people think. And I wish somebody had said to me, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today. I wish somebody had said to me, what interests you? What do you want to do that like you feel you could go every day to work and, use a strength? And for me, my strength is people. So of course I do psychology, and if I fall asleep in the stats lab, which did happen, because I'm struggling, or if I need to get an extra tutor, then that's what you do, because that's what you want to do. So I got a little annoyed as well. And even when I did work experience, I wanted to be a vet. And again, I was told, oh, you can do admin, because I wasn't good at science. And it was really frustrating, because all these little things that people do can really influence you, if you don't have that person saying to you, what do you like? And that's okay if you're not perfect at it. If you really enjoy and you want to do it, do it. Don't let people tell you that, because you're not good at science, or you're not good at maths, or because you have to go to university. You don't. What do you want to do? If a degree helps that, do it. If it doesn't, then get into what you love doing sooner, quicker, because that's when you really start to skyrocket in terms of your career and capability.
That was incredible right there. Now, I assume you're going to keep that mindset when your adorable children, Zoe and Noah, come of age. So how do you plan to approach university or further education or any path when they are in their grade 12?
This is a funny thing. I'm so invested in the high school. I think about it all the time, where I want to send them. And I get stirred up a lot by other parents. Like, how are you thinking about that now? I'm like, this is an important decision. Okay.
Well, remind us, how old are they?
My son is 9.
Okay.
And my daughter's 5.
Oh, you are jumping the gun, but it's better to be prepared.
I am a prepared person, and I am a bit of a researcher too. I feel really confident because I know my kids really well and what they enjoy, and they're both really different. I mean, my son's really into basketball and sport, and my daughter's really into singing. I promise I didn't influence her, but she's really into
you like
singing.
that.
I do love that. So and both of them have different interests, and so finding a school where it's going to meet those needs, and you've got to compromise, right? I'm not sending my 2 kids to different schools. school. I'm sorry. I'm not that parent that wants to do two different drop-offs and pickups.
Yeah.
I think, and they would love to be together. They're very close. So I know they'd want to be at the same school. But I definitely just think my experience helps me go, okay, the school that I know where I'm already going to send my son because it's got the best basketball program and he loves it. I know all of that planned out, but I think I'm a lot more planned than a lot of other parents because I am sort of always thinking ahead of, I do want my children to have that opportunity to grow and show up, using what they're passionate about in school. Because I think we always think, I think the more we delay that, we rob them of the opportunity to grow and shine when they're ready. And every kid's got a different stage. Like sometimes it takes them longer to get something. Other times they're just gifted in a particular area.
Yeah.
And I think the longer we delay that, or the more we try to mold them or make them into something that, a career path that we think's a good job, or we mold them into something, then we rob them of the opportunity to use their gifts.
Now, are you planning as far ahead as university for both of them, or
No.
we're not there yet? No,
we're not there
okay.
yet. No, they'll pick that. That's nothing to do with me. They'll pick that. I firmly believe that that's something that'll be the first decision day, or that'll be what they own for them. They'll be owning that themselves and just knowing that I'll support whatever decision they make. But my role purely as a parent is to just give them that opportunity to flourish in high school and school and support them where they might be struggling. And then the decisions that they make, that's up to them, and they'll own them and they'll own their mistakes too.
You are a great mom. That sounds like a dream.
Thanks.
Seriously, that was so nice. I feel like I got younger. I'm like, oh yeah, what's my superpower? Very inspiring. So we'll turn this back to you. With what you're doing as the founder of Karan & Co., how did you start your business and how did you find that entrepreneurial spirit from taking psychology in university? How did you transfer over to there?
Oh, wow. Starting a business. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Uni has got nothing on founding a business.
Wow.
Nothing. Like the lessons that I learned, because you know what it is in university. Yes, you're learning how to critically think, but the stakes aren't high. If you make a mistake, if you get a B in a assessment, that's fine. You can get your grades up later. You make a mistake in business, you're going to be negative cash flow. You're going to be, the stakes are on you to know how to generate income, how to know your numbers and your finances, how to lead your staff, how to get work. Everything is on you. When you run a business, you get to, you know what your superpowers are. And I know that I'm good with people, and I know that I love leading a team, and and I'm naturally a nurturer. Like I get lit up when somebody else learns or gets something that is way more rewarding to me than doing it myself, which is what led me to know that I needed to lead a team, because I got to that point in my career where I wanted to teach other people, see them learn and get satisfaction out of their success. And I feel like this is often what happens to people once they study at uni and then get into the job or thrown into the job, because you learned the theory around that, but it's all the unknown stuff that comes into the job. Because you might be working in a role as a lawyer, say, and then you might lead a team as a lead lawyer or something, and you've got paralegals. So you've learned how to be a lawyer, but have you learned how to manage people? No,
right.
You haven't. Have you learned how to manage your own budget? If you have a law practice or law firm, have you learned how to manage your own budget? No. So I think like having your own business is a little bit like a baptism of fire. You have to accept that you're going to fail. And everyone says that you have to accept that you're going to make mistakes. This took me a long time to realize.
So since you are a recruitment specialist, I mean, I'm going to say expert right now. What makes someone desirable to employ, especially looking at someone coming out of school in their late teens, early 20s?
I think life experience is huge. And I think demonstrating that you have that initiative to go after something, whatever that is, that hard work and almost determination and tenacity is really important, I think, in any job, because in any job, you're going to have things that you've got to overcome. So my biggest advice is, if you're going to uni or whatever you're doing, get a job. As soon as you can, get a job and get into the workforce. And I look back, and I was always kind of working and juggling a lot. I was not afraid bite off more than I could chew and keep chewing was always a joke in my family. Very Aussie saying. What I encourage, people in their 20s and that are growing and learning, this is the time of your life to fill it up. Fill it up with things you love and that you want to learn. And don't be afraid to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And don't worry about what others think. They don't know you. They don't know what you're capable of. You always have that, but it's about listening to that and then going, how can I find that in the world? Maybe I find a job. Maybe I really love, I don't know. Maybe I really love teaching swimming. And that's something that I want to do. Do that while you're studying another. You don't have to limit yourself in one area, but the more experience you've got in the workplace. I had a guy the other day, he's an engineer, a senior role, and he'd done fencing for 6 years. He put on his resume, and I turned around and I said to the hiring manager, did you see that he's done fencing for 6 years? And he goes, oh, I didn't see that. And I said, do you know how hard fencing is? It is the worst job. I have goats and it is hard work to fence. Like there ain't no harder work than fencing. It's hot in Australia. And you can just imagine being out and you're sticking the pickets in and you're building the fence.
Yeah.
So I saw that in his resume and I'm like, he's not afraid of hard work because he did that for 6 years. And he did that for 6 years and then studied as a mature student. And because he had worked hard and he demonstrated that commitment to doing what he loved, you could see it painted like a picture in his resume, then you could see the type of person that he was. So if you're not listening to what you want to do or the impact you want to have or the hobbies you want to be doing or the part-time work, and you're not filling up your life with more than just study, if that's what you're doing, then you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to get as much out of your 20s as possible. That's how I see it as well. Like fill it up with the things you want to do. Obviously, work-life balance, don't go crazy.
Yeah.
But if you're just studying and just drinking and partying, I don't know. I think you can get more out of it than that.
I agree. I mean, I'm reevaluating every hobby I've ever had, everything I'm doing right now. You've got me thinking. At 8 p.m., might I add, 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'm like rethinking my whole life. So what mistakes do you see young people making? I know you just kind of touched on some briefly, but in general, what should we be fixing Gen Z right now specifically?
Yeah. One quote that I always say, I go to panels often to try and attract more young women to engineering or traditionally male-dominated industries. So that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, is getting people to think, outside of the box in terms of their career. And one of the things that I say is stop trying to fit in when you were born to stand out. That's one of the things, the common things I see with Gen Z at the moment is there's so much information. I didn't have social media back then to change my view or to compare myself to other people or to constantly feel like, oh, look at this entrepreneur. They're like 20 and look what they're doing,
Well, that's decision day. We're comparing what we're doing to other people. You're so right.
100%. You're going to decision day and you're seeing all the different, shirts and things like that people are wearing, and you're judging your self-worth against, a standard that, you've got to look at it this way and look at it logically and go, if I don't want to go to university, I don't want to define my success or my self-worth against somebody that wants that career option, because that's not something that is in my life plan for me. And I think Gen Z, the hard part about being in Gen Z is you're flooded with information. Own your own story. Don't worry about what you see on social media or what happens at decision day. If I could do one thing or say one thing to Gen Z, it is forget about the trends on TikTok, loud quitting, quiet quitting, what everybody else is doing. Forget that noise, because it's just noise. It's not who you are, and only you know who you are and what you want to do. So forget all of that and get back. I think so much of what it is getting back to the real sense of who you are, doing things like meditation, doing things that allow you to recenter yourself and reconnect with actually what you want to do in the world. I love talking to people that are making career choices, because there's so much that I think that I would change or I would have been on this path a lot sooner if I'd listened to my intuition And I don't think we trust kids' intuition enough. We think we've got to put them into a stable job, or even people in their 20s. We're kind of like, oh, you should be a lawyer because they earn good money. And
Yeah.
we give the wrong advice a lot of the time because it's what we've learned or how we've, been conditioned to. And I feel like it's about breaking that too. So what would you do differently? Like, if you look back, what do you think your superpower is or your strengths? And, at work and home, but what are you really good at and enjoy?
I always know that I've been a quick learner. I've been a leader, creative.
There's a thing you can do where over a week you write, like you just keep a journal and you write down like when there's a task that you really like, and it's a task that you really like when you're really engaged and kind of lit up, and you're like, oh, this is so interesting, and you lose track of time. That's a strength. But it's a strength that where you get in what they call the flow state. So when you'll know when you'll be doing something like podcasting is a strength of yours because you lost track of time. You were so in the moment, and me too. And what you do is if you can do it over a week, you'll start to have all these tasks, and then you pull that together and you'll start to see, how can that be a career for me? All of that. How can I get all of that in a job? I wish someone had told me that way when I started.
I'm so grateful you just told me that. I just wrote that down, and I will be doing that for the rest of this week. That's going to be a game changer.
So much no one tells you.
I know.
Right? So why aren't people like, I feel like what happens now is you get into, I'm in my late 30s, and you get into your late 30s. I'm like, you should be telling young people the stuff that you've learned. Like, don't just make them figure it out, because you remember how hard it was figuring it out when you were growing up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Lauren, where can we support you? How can we help you? What do you got going on?
Well, I also run a podcast too, which is called the Building Doors Podcast. The reason I created that is very similar. It's people that have different versions of success. There is no one version of success. In the podcast, you hear from people with completely different career backgrounds and goals, and then you realize that you are not alone in whatever you choose. It's not everyone goes to university. Not everyone, starts their own business. It's a different version of success. And then Karan & Co. So we're specialist recruitment firms. So if people need help hiring amazing staff, that's definitely us. So you can follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Insta. So you can follow Building Doors and Karan & Co. So yeah.
Follow Leah Leverich on social media. Follow Decision Day. Put us in a group chat over here. Share your decision day. Share your plans for life after secondary school with us. We would love to hear it. And email me, decisiondaypodcast@gmail.com for any further inquiries or to be a sponsor. And thank you for listening. And I can't wait to share a new perspective with you in the next episode. Thank you, Lauren.
Thanks so much, Leah.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Day podcast. If you know a student in high school, ask them to listen or share an episode with them. And as always, we love hearing from you. Share your stories with us on social, Decision Day Podcast. Until next week. Decision Day Podcast is sponsored by the Rise and Record event, Nashville, Tennessee. RiseandRecord.com for more info.